There is a place where fears and fantasies get weighed on substance alone. Legends and lures are examined in a fresh light. Conspiracy theory meets conspiracy fact. We've embraced the possibilities. Now beyond the threshold, you are in the new realm.
Just out of nowhere, we've seen this huge white light coming in over the horizon. I started getting this demonic thoughts, strange object in the sky. And I tried to scream, and I tried to wake up, and I couldn't. UFOs, cryptozoology, paranormal, and abduction. The shadow people or the jinn or some other things I saw demonic in nature. Demonic in nature.
I want to know.
Listeners don't know this, but you and I have been talking off air for about an hour and a half already, so I know all about you, but why didn't you tell all them about yourself and your research?
Okay, John. My name is Butch Witzkowski. I'm the director of U4COP, the UFO Research Center of Pennsylvania, located in eastern Pennsylvania. We are an investigative research group that investigates UFOs, cryptozoology, paranormal, and abduction. We've been in existence now this is our fourth year. We have a website at www.paufosearch.com, one word. And I guess tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the abduction phenomenon.
Yeah, which is amazing. You and I talked about this once before, but unfortunately our tape got destroyed, technical thing, so we never got to air it.
Well, a lot of people get a little confused with abduction. When you talk about abduction, you're thinking somebody just got kidnapped. And the term alien abduction, or the alien abduction phenomenon, is really described as subjectively real memories of being taken secretly or against one's will by apparently non-human entities and subjected to complex and psychological procedures.
And worse.
Yes. When I first started, it was quite accidentally that I got involved in this, where I was asked to speak at a conference on abduction. And although I knew about it, I really didn't know a whole lot about it, to be honest. So I, set about doing some studies because I had 2 months to get ready. And in the midst of the research, it just kind of hit me like, well, so how many people could be missing? And I tried to locate that. Unfortunately, there is no groups or databases for that type of abduction scenario. So I went on NCIC, which is the National Crime Information Center, and I saw that in 2008, 778,000 missing persons reports were filed.
That's amazing.
And approximately 95% were found. 75% of those are runaways under the age of 18, like, I can't have dad's car, so I'm going to run away. Another 20% came out to be spousal abuse, murders, elderly walkaways, ransom demands, etc. But what struck me was that 5% are never found, and that number came out to be 38,908. So I went back a little further, and since 1991, the missing persons reports totaled 13,861,000. Again, using that same math, 5%, 693,000 are never found. No traces ever located. And so in a 17-year period, that's 40,795 people a year that are missing.
Completely unaccounted for, too. Are they just gone,
totally
right?
Unaccounted for. No bodies found, nothing. I mean, they're just gone. And that's men, women, and children. Now, with abduction, alien abduction, a lot of the mental health and scientists explain it as, deception, proneness to fantasy, false memory syndrome, personality disorders, sleep phenomenon, environmental factors. But, those are pretty high numbers. And then, the abduction scenario, and no matter where you hear it or where you read it, it's always the same. There's a capture, there's an examination, there's a conference with the takers, there's a tour of the craft, there's loss of time, then there's the return. Some people suffer from theophany, which is, they have a oneness with God or the universe or the world.
Exactly.
And then there's the aftermath that they put up with for the rest of their lives. And again, no matter which report you're reading, going way back or something that's just recent, the areas of alien interest in the human is the same also. They're interested in the cranium, the nervous system functions, skin samples, the reproductive systems, both male and female, cardiovascular systems, respiratory systems, the lymphatic system, and the abdominal lower region only. So, they're all the same. They don't change. And you've had a lot of really notable cases since 1957. The Antonio Boas case in Brazil, the Betty and Barney Hill case in 61, the Shermer case in Allagash in 67, Pascagoula case in 73, Travis Walton in 75, Robert Taylor in 79, Whitey Scribner in the 70s and 80s. So it's a phenomenon that is being looked at more now than ever, I believe.
Well, the details are usually pretty much the same, too. Out of all these cases, no matter who or where they are, they usually pretty much come out the same.
That's correct. I mean, they just, no matter where. The only thing is, like I said, with the abduction, there's no databases, and we can only go on stuff that's really from this country. Groups overseas are sparse. I deal with a few, and they every now and then come up with a case, but the person's either found or there was an accident or something like that. But in most cases, there's no way of knowing how many people are missing around the world because there are no databases. And I'm sure in the Middle East, where people are killed daily by the hundreds, and the African countries, who knows how many people are missing? But we can only really find anything database-wise from the the NCIC report. And the NCIC report is done by every police department in the country every year. It is set forth paperwork where you would put down anything from what it is you're reporting the crimes in your area to the FBI for their reports. And that's how they publish in the newspaper that, murders are up, rapes are down, burglaries up,
right.
That kind of stuff.
But you never hear this. I mean, when's the last time you heard on the news that, X amount of people are missing?
That's never brought up, ever. And for good reason, I'm sure, because how can anybody explain that? So once I got involved in that, then I really started looking at the abduction phenomenon, not only with the human element, but with cattle. In the middle 50s, the stories about finding corpses of strangely mutilated cattle began to surface in the rural southwestern United States, in the Four Corner states, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. And first, the authorities blamed the pharmaceutical companies who were alleged to be using the excised organs for research, and then the cults using the organs in rituals. And the strange thing about that was, which is almost the same as the abduction scene, is there's no physical traces, there's no footprints, there's no crushed grass, no tire prints, no imprints in the snow, no indications of man nor predator near the carcasses. And the wounds on the carcasses are 1 to 1.5 inch holes through which internal organs are sucked out. The wounds are cauterized by extreme heat. They're extremely precision cut, and usually missing from all the carcasses are the eyes, tongues, lip, jaw, sexual organs, lower intestines, and udders. And the cattle mutilations are not predator. I mean, if you look at a predator, an animal killed by a predator...
Well, they rip things apart.
Yeah, a pack of wolves descends on a calf or a slow-moving cow. I mean, they just shred it. I mean, they take they just rip things off. There's nothing precision about anything. There are no holes. I mean, they just gut the animal.
Yeah, very few animals walk around with laser cutting tools.
Right. Well, and then as I got into it a little bit, then I found that sheep mutilations in the United Kingdom, in England, and now basically the same exact thing that are done to the cattle here are done to sheep out there. Now, horses have been done here also. But, you look at these pictures of the sheep, and, they got the same holes, the same markings, the same organs are missing. And, the reports continue. I mean, through 2011, we've had reports in Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Montana, California, Oklahoma, Arizona, England, South America. So they continue. And then, that kind of led me into human mutilation, which was really hard to believe. And I thought, well, it's just some kind of internet prank or something like that. And so I started looking at that, and it really starts in the early 60s, where you get stories coming to the forefront of human corpses being found with the same types of wounds they find on cattle. And that was immediately dismissed as being in bad taste by ufologists. Absolutely.
Which is kind of irrelevant. If something's happening, it's happening.
Yeah, and it was just not to be talked about. And I've been told to stop, and of course I didn't stop, but some of the cases to date were, that we found, only one that we can, or actually two, that we can say we have enough evidence to say that that case actually took place. But there was one of a Sergeant J.P. Lovett in the U.S. Air Force in '56 who went downrange in White Sands, New Mexico, with a commanding officer to pick up some material left from a recent shot of a missile. The colonel that's with him hears him screaming and gets over a sand dune just in time to see him with something lashed around his leg being pulled up into some sort of a craft. And then a few days later, they find his body not far from where he was taken, laying there, and he's been pretty much done in just like a cabin mutilation. There was a case in Bliss, Idaho, cases in New Zealand, and then there's a couple cases which we just really can't get a lot of information on. There was a special ops military firefight during Vietnam where a group of special operations soldiers come across some aliens loading body parts into cases, plastic cases.
Wow.
The firefight starts, and hooray for our side, we win pretty much all the information that comes out. And then there's a B-52 crash in Vietnam where the plane looks like it has been set down in the jungle, not a crash. And when the operations team, along with a Navy medic who presents the story and photographer, gets there, they find the guys still strapped in their seats, and they're pretty much butchered the same way. The group that goes out there orders them to burn the plane, destroy it. We cannot find any evidence of a B-52 crash in Vietnam to date.
And a plane like that coming down in the woods is going to make huge amount of damage.
I mean, the cases just came to light a couple years ago, and, we're still looking for information, but the information is slim to none. But the two cases that really stand out, especially the biggest one, is the Guadaparanga Dam case in Brazil in 1988. The Guadaparanga Dam is located right outside of Sao Paulo, Brazil, and a couple guys are out fishing on the lake, and they see what looks to be a body on one of the little islands, and it's a man-made lake. So they go out, and instead of going to check the body, they go get the police, and the police come out, and they bring forensic people with them. So they look at the body, and death due to massive trauma is what the autopsy report says, which we have a copy of. There's no signs of rigor mortis or liver mortis. Time of death was placed at 40 to 72 hours before discovery. There's no bloating or noticeable amount of blood at the scene, which is remarkable on no bloating because the temperature in that part of the country, that part of the world, at that time of the year, it would have been in the high 90s with very high humidity.
Well, then you would have ballooned in no time. Anything dies, it's going to happen like that.
Oh, absolutely. Now, the decedent, the gentleman, is found with the following were surgically removed: his eyes, left ear, inner ear, lower jaw, inner throat, and tongue. There are 1 inch to 1.5 inch holes in the following areas where muscle, tissue, and glands are removed: the shoulder, chest, navel, and thigh. Testicles were removed. Prostrate gland was removed via the urethral tube. The intestines were removed via a hole in the navel. The anus was cored out to the colon. The body presented no signs of bloating, which is remarkable. And there was no body odor whatsoever. The autopsy report, when it was translated in the autopsy report 7 or 8 times, I believe it was 7, there's the term vital reaction. And the definition of vital reaction, the actual legal definition of vital reaction, indicates a response of living body tissues to injury. By definition, it can only occur during life and is therefore an index of antemortem injury. This is of considerable importance in forensic medicine in A, attempting to establish that an injury was inflicted before death, and B, possibility of estimating the time of infliction before death. If you would take a dead body and stab it with a knife, all you're going to get is a hole, period. There's not going to be any discoloration, any marking, anything like that. If you stab a living individual with that knife, he's pulling, he's moving, he's tearing, he's trying to get away. So he's causing all kind of injuries around the wound itself, okay? And what it actually means is the guy was alive when the procedure was inflicted upon him. Wow. One of the things they find during the autopsy is when they removed the skull cap is that the trauma of vital reaction was so great that he had multiple hematomas in the brain of small blood vessels.
That's from extreme pain, isn't it?
Correct. If, like, say, a person would be crushed to death slowly, like they were run over by something, and there was no way they could get away, the absolute terror and the pain would just start popping blood vessels in the brain. And this guy's brain was covered with them.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
We are investigating another case we just got from England, and we just started that investigation just a couple of days ago. So I don't know where that's going to go yet, but from the person that's the researcher in England that sent it to us, he's pretty sure that we're probably looking at the same type of abduction, and although they haven't found the body yet, that we had with the Todd Cease case in Pennsylvania. If you're not familiar with the Todd Cease case, that happened up in Northumberland County in August of 2002 on Montour Ridge. It started with a missing persons report. Report was made to the Point Township Police Department on August 4th, 2002. The missing individual's name was Todd Cease, white male, 39 years old. On that date, Mr. Cease advised his wife he was going to spot some pre-season deer up on Montour Ridge. He takes his four-wheeler and he leaves. States that he'll be home by noon. At 2 o'clock, the wife reports him missing because he's not an individual that would not be there on time. Very out of sorts for him. Search is mounted by local police, state police, fire company. Mr. Cease's ATV is found undamaged along with his boot, which was found in a tree. No Mr. Cease. Searching cadaver dogs find nothing. The divers search a pond on the Cease property. They find nothing. Local fishermen see an object over the power lines and see something being pulled into it. A local farmer says he sees the same thing. The search resumes, and searchers find search is stopped for the day. The following day it resumes, and the searchers find the body of Todd Cease in a thicket of bushes 150 yards from his residence, wearing only his underwear. He has a burn mark on his left temporal lobe, and 3 feet away from him is lying a dead snake, rattlesnake. He has no snake bites on him. The snake has no visible signs of any trauma. He was not bitten by the snake. He is emaciated. He is pale. The only damage, like I said, was a temporal lobe, like a burn mark, black burn mark. Mm-hmm. The coroner removes the body to the Indiantown Gap, which to do the post. I trained at Indiantown Gap. There's no facilities there to do an autopsy. The body receives a second post at Allentown Hospital. There's no ruling on the cause of death. Foul play and trauma are automatically ruled out, so they wait toxicology. The ATV was full of gas. The key was in the ignition. It was on. It was actually off, but the key was on. There was no footprints in the ground around it, no marks of animals or any distress or a fight or anything like that. The boot was found up in a tree about 25 or 30 feet. They never found the rest of his clothes or the other boot, and that was a 6-square-mile search of the Montour Ridge that produced nothing. The family was not allowed to view the body. The body was returned for burial 6 to 8 weeks later. The cause of death came out as a cocaine overdose.
A cocaine overdose?
Yeah, Mr. Cease had no record of any cocaine overdose. Speaking with some of his friends and school chums, there was never any use of drugs. Matter of fact, he was prone to be a guy that walked around from morning till night with a can of Mountain Dew soda in his hand. So a lot of the issues with that incident were where are the missing clothes? Why was the body not seen during a search of 6 square miles, including the property, where all these people were walking around, including cadaver dogs and search dogs? And the body's found 25 yards from the pond, which was already searched by divers. How'd the boot get up in the tree? Why was the family not allowed to view the body? Why was the body taken to a military facility for a post? And why was there a second post? So, the issues continued. Where are the fishermen and the farmer statements? You can't find those. There was no history of drug use. Why was the body emaciated and not bloated due to the heat that time of the year? Why did the body show no signs of post-mortem lobotomy or rigor mortis or liver mortis? Why, after all these years, is this still an open case with the police? We've tried to get their report, and we were told if we kept bothering them, we'd be charged with harassment, and it is an open case. Now, in the state of Pennsylvania, as I'm sure in all cases in other states, when a case is open, the only reason a case is kept open because it's listed as a murder. They don't have an individual or individuals to go after.
But there's no questions being asked about this, except for possibly you. Otherwise, everyone's just accepting it?
No, well, everybody's pretty much accepting it, but there are other investigators that are looking at the case, as well as myself. There's actually even an investigator from Hawaii that was involved. But, you know, as long as it's an open case, you can't get anything. You're not going to get the police report. You're not going to get the autopsy reports. You're not going to get anything, as long as it's an open case. Now, if it was a closed case, that would be a different story. You just file Freedom of Information Act and you get the information. But if it's an open case, it'll stay open forever.
Oh, so that's the reason they got an open case, so you can't find anything about it.
Pretty much. You know, the question on abduction basically is, what is it? You know, are we dealing with extraterrestrial beings, interdimensional beings, time travelers, or all of the above? You know, people are being affected in a very real way in this, and you know, there's death involved, and it's happening to many, many people. So,
and these numbers you have are just representing America too, like you were saying before. So who knows how much is going on around the world?
Yep, that's the 50 states. That's it. That's nothing that's nothing from Canada or any other country. I mean, that's just the United States.
Well, how often are they finding these kind of things, Butch? You know, as far as finding the bodies, you know, that have been mutilated.
Well, like I said, there's a couple cases. The most recent case would be Egypt, and that takes place in 2005 in Beni Mazar, which is on the outskirts of one of the main cities.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, 3 families are pretty much butchered in the same way that our boy in Brazil was.
Wow.
They arrest a guy for the murders. I mean, every man, woman, child, pig, dog, whatever was in the places were basically butchered the same way as cattle. They arrest a retarded man who really just has a problem walking, got the IQ of maybe a 7 or 8-year-old, and he's charged with the murders. He lives in a town 15 miles away. They couldn't produce how he got to this Beni Mazar area. It's right outside of Cairo. I knew I'd come up with it sooner or later.
Okay.
And he is charged with the murders of the 3 families. You got to remember now we're talking about somebody with a mind of a 7-year-old. So we don't know how they came up with his modus operandi of killing 3 families, and where did he get the instruments to do this kind of cutting and tearing, and what did he do with all the organs that were taken? So he's brought to trial, and a young lady lawyer takes the case for him, and you know, they present the case, and after a couple of years he's acquitted. To this day, he is not allowed to leave his house without being under a police watch or a policeman. Even to go to the mosque or to go shopping with his family, he's under constant police surveillance.
Oh, that's weird.
And then one of the most recent reports we got, which it just seems to be at a standstill right now, and I'm assuming there's some issues. We got a report, or we had 2 researchers send us an email, and from England. And they said they had found some alleged documentation of mummified remains of persons found in trees in the 16th through the 19th centuries with strange holes in their bodies. And I sent back to them, I said, well, what exactly do you mean, and how did you find this? And they said, well, they were working on a research paper having to do with archaeology, and they stumbled across some writings or papers or books describing missing people found hanging in trees, mummified, but only a few days after they were reported missing. And they bared strange holes in their body, and they had some missing body parts. I questioned them again, and I said, you know, well, where did you find the information? They said, well, they were looking through old records, and England was one of those countries where they kept records on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a village, and they were going back through records trying to locate some information on some locations that they were looking for, and they came upon a number of these cases. Then they really started looking, and then they found more. And then when they asked to photograph or copy that information, they were told no, they couldn't do that because they don't allow the photographs, and they're surely not going to allow these old books to be put into a copy machine. So last thing we heard from them was they were going to try a different approach and try to get back to the one place, especially where the stuff from the 16th century, see if they could get some kind of relief with, you know, maybe just let us write down the information on our own paperwork and So I don't know where they got with that, but we haven't heard from them for a few, maybe 6 months. So I had sent an email off not too long ago, maybe 3 months ago, and I hadn't had any reply. So maybe they shut down, or maybe it was just, a hoax to begin with.
Or they were shut down. they were eliminated, which happens in this kind of thing sometimes too.
I'm pretty sure that's pretty true, because I had a woman from the United States who most of her family came from England, and there's some royalty involvement there. That she proved. I mean, I got to a site where it gave the listing of royalty and relatives of royalty and stuff like that, and her father's name was there. So I took her at her word, and she was relating sort of the same thing. She didn't mention the holes or the mutilation, but she mentioned that, bodies were being found on roofs, up in trees that were way too high to climb. And trees aren't very high in England. They don't grow very tall. Mm-hmm. And they're pretty sparse. But found in mountainous areas, came to the top floating in bogs, and all in that same area of time in 16th, 17th, 18th century. And she was documenting all that stuff. Now, she had taken ill about a year ago, and I haven't tried to contact her since, but I should, just to see how she's doing. It wasn't very serious, but it was one of those debilitating things like colitis or something. Mm-hmm. So maybe there was something to the story, but, since I don't live in England, it's a little hard for me to get information. But this new case that we were just presented with, I just got it a couple days ago, like I said, so I just started really working on it. And the guy says he'll give me all the information to help me get all the information I need. So we'll see how that works out.
These are amazing. So, these are basically just like the cattle mutilations we've heard about growing up for the longest time, but just on people then.
Sure, exactly. I mean, they're identical. When you look at the pictures of the cadaver from Brazil, and if you put a picture of a butchered cow aside of it, I mean, it's identical. The holes are the same. They're the same size. They're cut with the same precision. Cows have multiple stomachs. Mm-hmm. And when you remove the udders of a cow, and I asked a veterinarian about this, he said to remove the udders of a cow with a scalpel, and knowing what you're doing, to not cut into one of those stomachs would be pretty much impossible. I have pictures of cows where the udder's taken out, where the stomachs are exposed. They're not even scratched.
My gosh.
So, it's kind of amazing in this day and age for people to say that, we have that type of equipment. I just went through an operation, and I got a couple holes in me. And trust me, they are not perfectly round. They're not perfectly smooth. They're pretty much jagged. Got the job done, but nothing like this. I mean, this stuff is being done with precision instruments that I don't even know if we even have.
The mutilations nowadays, I remember hearing about this, what was it, like 70s, early 80s, you used to hear about it a lot, but you don't hear about it much. But it's still going on just as much, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, what's that, just a big hush-hush thing then? It's just no one's allowed to speak about it?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I've been fortunate that there are a lot of people out there have read the reports and did a little research on their own, and they realize that this stuff has gone on. And, although I've been asked to stop it, and I even received a call one time to stop mentioning it and stop talking about it, and then when I called the number back from caller ID, the number was disconnected. That happened in a matter of 3 minutes. That's pretty hard to do, not unless your phone company's got something going for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you're on something like that, too, an issue like this, and whoever they are, they want you to stop. They let you know. They got all their little secret ways, but it's a matter of who they are.
Yeah. But, I just think that one of the things is, if you're out, whether it's ufology or this or abductions or cryptozoology, no matter what genre you're looking at or phenomenon, if you're out there for a search for the truth. And if they would just say that to everybody and everybody would shut up, you'd never even know there were UFOs anywhere.
Exactly. You're actually involved in all those fields, too, by the way, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't think I said that in the beginning. I mean, you're not just into this abduction. You're into everything.
Yeah. We researched UFO sightings, crashes. Our website, which I'll give you again, is PAUFOsearch.com. If you look on the front page, there are some cases from Pennsylvania and around that we have investigated. There's one case on there from the Harrisburg flap that was done by another researcher. But they pretty much tell it the way it is and what we found. There's a couple in there that, they say was a flap, and we say it never took place. And we offered the proof, and the proof is there. And I always say, if anybody thinks that, they have more information that would change our ending or our end of our research on a certain case, let me know. I'll post it. To date, I haven't had anything like that happen. I mean, we're pretty thorough with our research. We have 2 mobile units. We have one we have 2 fully equipped, and they have everything from satellite communications to built-in laptops and IF cameras and regular cameras, and you name it, we got it. Trucks are both loaded. We have one here in the east end of the state, and we have one out in the western part of the state. The one out in the western part of the state is a 4-wheel drive, only because of the area out there where it's at, and the one here is a Ford panel, a new Ford panel. I think we're the only ones in the country that have anything like that. We have pretty much everything on there we need. We are going to put in some television equipment into the big van, only because of some stuff. We don't only investigate things in Pennsylvania. I mean, we're investigating the Brown Mountain Lights in North Carolina. I've helped investigate cases in pretty much every state in the union so far. We've helped a lot of other groups research stuff, smaller groups that needed help or didn't have the database or the equipment. We've helped them out. We've helped some researchers in Poland. We've helped some researchers in Germany. We've helped some researchers in England. We've helped some researchers in Spain. And just really, searching for things that they were trying to find here in the United States or with a case they may have in their country that they think is similar to a case that we may have had here, and I'll do that research for them. We'll help anybody out. I mean, I haven't turned anybody down ever, and I don't think I ever will, because, we get people that talk about cases that happened back in the 50s. Now, databases back in the 50s on UFOs were zilch. There was none.
Right.
But, if you do enough searching in old newspapers and stuff like that, you can come up with some stuff. Now, Pennsylvania, since 1947, we can document about 2,200, 2,300 cases of UFO sightings. I don't have the ratio on which would be hoaxes because there've been, the reports come from so many different locations. But we don't have a lot of hoax reports come to us. I think in the 4 years, almost 4 years now that we've been up and running, I think I've had like 6, and they were quite obvious. And the one was a known hoaxer that I knew from a previous group. So I think we're getting a lot of good information. We'll answer anybody's questions. I mean, whether they want to know how to use a piece of equipment or how to do an investigation or what they should do during a report. Also on our website, I started putting up a couple months ago investigative techniques on, how to use IF cameras, how to use investigative techniques in questioning, how to take and control evidence, how to seal it, how to make sure that it stays proper. This month I'll be doing, or last month we did on how to use EMF detectors and the different types and how you would use them with UFOs, types of equipment to carry, things that they should not do during a paranormal investigation, especially people with, cameras with the camera straps hanging down.
Exactly.
They have caused so many false positives in UFO in paranormal pictures that it's crazy. Or they're smoking a cigarette. I
was just going to say that, or cigarette smoking. You're taking a picture and the guy behind you's smoking.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, there's this big case about plasma. We've listed different books people should read on UFOs. We've listed books on books people should read on paranormal or cryptozoology. We always encourage people to go to conferences. There's conferences held all over the country. Not so much in the last 2 years because of the economy, but that'll change again. It'll get back to where it was. But we encourage them to go to the conferences. We speak a lot. We go out and speak a lot. We get interviewed a lot on radio shows. Been on Coast to Coast a few times. We do 1 or 2 radio shows a month. And it's just, it's good to get the information out to the people because, I'm not here to train researchers, really. I'm looking for the truth, and I want to find out what's going on and take these cases and just look into them and see if they're credible. And if they're credible, the investigation goes well and we come up with the right answers, we'll post it.
And out of all these cases you have, because you cover the whole gamut here, What are some like your most memorable cases, that have really stuck in your head, whether they're UFO, abduction, or ghost, whatever?
I think the one that sticks in my head the most is the Carbondale, Pennsylvania case. That to me was really one of the very first cases that we took on. It was the case where an object lands in a silt pond in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, and it's witnessed by a group of teenagers standing on the corner on a Saturday night. And like I mentioned to you before, in that part of the country, Carbondale is a very beautiful little town.
Mm-hmm.
But it's in that distressed coal area, and not a whole lot to do on a Saturday night. And they saw this thing come out of the east to west in the early morning sky, and it's kind of passing over Russell Park, and they're standing on the corner about a block away, and they watch this bright, hot-looking object go behind the park and into an abandoned coal property, and winds up in a silt pond on the property. They run over and they say that they see a light coming from underneath the water that's glowing, and there's a sizzling sound. This all takes place November 9th, 1974. The witnesses are aged 14 to 19, 4 guys and a girl, and they call the police, and the police don't show up right away, and they call them again, and they finally show up after 3 hours. Of course, the whole scenario after we got the original investigator's report was just phenomenal, because it was just like not one thing in there in that report, which was pretty much the report. I mean, everybody believed that report. The gentleman was a skeptic. People said military were there and took something out of the pond while nobody was there. We get the report, we go there, we've been there a number of times, we've done everything we could up there, taken samples, measurements, photographs, and it boils down to myself talking to the originator of the report, and he says he didn't realize that anybody was even interested in that anymore, because it was a hoax. And I told the gentleman, I said, well, I can tell you this. I can't prove what went into the silt pond that night. That's impossible. I said, but just looking at what was taken out of the silt pond and saying that that's what went into the silt pond, I said, I can probably, without a doubt, prove forensically that that lantern was not what went into that pond. And what they pulled out of the pond was a old railroad lantern that they said was what went into the pond. It just wasn't true. I mean, we bought some of the lanterns, the original lanterns, the same type, got a hold of one of the batteries, same type of battery that was in it, checked with the manufacturer, the lantern specifications. I mean, we went through everything, measurements, time of day. We have pictures of the light glowing under the pond, and we tested with our own lanterns of the same type and battery configuration. And although I've heard some researchers say that they put that same lantern under the water for 35 and 40 hours and it stayed lit.
Okay.
Well, the only problem with that story is that when they pulled this lantern out and opened it up, it was found the battery was split open. The internal chemicals inside the battery were pouring out into the case. The case was all corroded. The contact points were all corroded, and according to the battery manufacturer, that thing wouldn't have lit no matter what you did, even if you held a match to it. A picture of the light under the alleged UFO lantern on the which we have a picture of in the on the website, shows this bright glowing light under the water, and I held an LED light, which we weighted at the bottom so the light would shine up, and we threw that in, of course, on a string so I could retrieve it. They're a little expensive. And although the light was waterproof, it did not show anything as bright as this light. Now, a lantern, this railroad lantern has one little 9-volt light in it, just like the old flashlights had. They could buy for 60 cents. There's no way it caused that bright light, because this LED light has 25 LEDs, and it didn't show anything near as bright as the picture shows.
And this just fell out of the sky, was the story too, right?
Correct. It just fell out of the sky. Then they said it was moving around in the pond. A policeman actually fired at it when it came after him. It started to come toward him, and he fired. There were just certain things that were so strange with the case after we got through, and really after we got the information, we got a copy of the report. The facts were they were taken from the original case file, and it was our opinion, having been involved in looking at the Carbondale UFO lantern incident, that the techniques of the investigation were faulty, in that scientific and common forensic techniques were not even followed. analysis of the water sample was not revealed, nor the water-air temperature difference of 16 degrees was never questioned. The battery was not taken for testing to a reputable lab. The photos were not taken by the UFO investigator on the scene or the police, but a private photographer who copyrighted the photos immediately. Family will not release those photos, even if they have them anymore. Who even knows that? The lantern, the original lantern, was given to the police chief, who said he sold it at a yard sale for $5. The scene site drawing is totally out of proportion, making the movement of the object absolutely minimal. The movement of the lantern they said was caused by underwater currents is not factual because there is no underwater current in a silt pond. The report is unclear as to the person or persons taking witnesses' statements, another thing came up was why would a scuba diver from New York used as local divers who refused entry to the pond on the grounds of safety and possible radiation contamination. NORAD, why would NORAD and NASA be contacting the Carbondale Police Department? Who recorded the witnesses' statements and where were those recordings done? What was discussed with Fells Planetarium and the Radiation Management Corporation, and who had the conversations with these two outfits and why? Were the persons taking the radiation readings trained in the use of the radiation detection equipment? How did the researchers conclude that the pond was extremely polluted? Why are no photographs or police report included in the original report from this investigator? Did police or UFO investigators or the press influence witness statements? Who knows?
Was this a small item, too? I mean, did the kids think it was a lantern falling, or where did the lantern idea come from?
No, they didn't say anything about a lantern. They were just blamed that they threw the lantern in.
Oh, okay.
They said what they saw was a glowing, hot-looking object fall from the sky into the pond. Okay. Now, they didn't see it go into the pond. They saw it go behind a row of trees, which is behind a park, which they were on the other side of. When they got there, they saw the glowing light under the water and heard the sizzling sound.
Oh, okay. So they didn't actually see something fall into the sky. The cover story is that the kids threw the lantern in the lake's what it is then. Correct.
The kids said they saw something fall from the sky and fall into that area. And when they went around that area is when they saw it in the pond.
Oh, okay.
When was the scene secured? Who recorded statements? It was just so much missing, and contrary to that report, that the object in the pond was a lit railroad lantern. The lantern described in the report could not have possibly been the source of the light witnessed within the pond. So it's our opinion and other opinion of other investigators who have researched this, that there was no way that lantern was the cause of the light in the silt pond. So, basically there's just so many things that came up with the thing that were so wrong. The lantern was reportedly to be thrown a distance of 20 to 30 feet from the shoreline by the children. Mm-hmm. And there's no way it could have landed handle down because the battery is at the bottom. So it would have landed light down. The lantern, because of its weight distribution, could have only landed with the bulb down. There's no way. And it would have sunk in this reportedly quicksand-like bottom that they report the pond had. Covered battery, like I said, the battery case was cracked. There was internal seepage, corrosion. There's no way the battery was functional.
It doesn't make sense as why in heaven's name, if they just thought it was a lantern, why would they even try to recover it for the most part?
Exactly. A lot of things that were wrong with the report were times, measurements, statements, forensics, witness statements, drawings, and a whole bunch of conclusions that meant nothing. The UFO investigators do not show up at the scene of the event until November 11th, approximately 34 to 39 and a half hours after the fact. A lot of stuff can happen in that time.
Exactly. Was there any, did you get any weird readings or anything around the area, or, any?
No, we tested, we took water tests and sample tests of the soil under the water. Then there was no splashover of water from alleged bolides or craters, or a crater noticed by the diver. A bolide traveling at high speed impacting water and silt in 15 feet of water would have left a crater as big as a house. Mm-hmm. The report contained a lot of hearsay, second and third party information, very little direct examination, and a query that we did of NASA Astrophysics Data System shows no meteorite activity on November 9, 1974. No report submissions of the UFO investigator from another group that was there was ever located. On the first attempt to retrieve the object in the pond, it would have been physically impossible for a police officer to say that he tried to reach it at a depth of 15 feet with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, it's true.
So basically, we came up with, it was our opinion that there were neither bolides nor railroad lantern that could have possibly caused the light in the silt pond. The fact that the battery was inoperable, no bolides or meteor activity was found in the area was a simple truth. Many of the things in that report that we received from the original investigator were flawed on many counts. So the fact that the report was defended over so many years as a factual finding is astounding. We're going to keep this case shall remain open as an unknown, and it'll remain open until such time as a factual and scientific conclusion is brought forth, and that's just going to keep it.
It says there's too many flaws in there. The key one is if it's a small area there and a lantern supposedly falls in the lake, why in heaven's name would they spend all the time and energy trying to even find it?
Yeah, and if you'd see the lantern, which there's a picture on that in that report of the lantern and the battery, and there's also a overhead photographs of the silt pond. I mean, there's also a picture there that was taken of the light showing from underneath the pond, underneath the water. Mm-hmm. You look at the bright light there, and you consider that you're looking at a muddy silt pond, and you look how bright that light is, and you look at that lantern, and there's no way that lantern gave off that kind of light ever in its best day, brand new.
Wow.
It would be like a single bulb flashlight, an old single bulb flashlight with two D batteries in it. Period. Only this would have a 6-volt battery in it.
So there's actually no idea of the size of whatever this is. Then is there? It's just all hearsay.
All we can find out is a lot of people said it was taken out on a flatbed truck that had U.S. Air Force stamped on the side of the door.
That's normal protocol for taking a lantern out.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. It had a small crane on it. One of these portable cranes, that's attached to the body.
Right.
And it was taken out while there was nobody there. And it's just an amazing piece. It was really a lot of fun to work on because, the best way to go about doing an investigation, and I don't care if it's on a UFO or if it's cryptozoology or if it's a paranormal case, you need to follow it forensically. Did this happen and can it happen? Did I see what I saw? Okay, so this is what I saw, and this is what it did. Now, one of the things, with the ufology, the first thing you would do is check news reports, and you check everything, newspapers, even in that area, even if you don't live there. Research old cases to see if there's been sightings there before. Just a forensic way of going about it, trying to prove that what was reported to you could have taken place. Not that it did, just could have that taken place. Were the conditions, is the story consistent, known reactions of those types of phenomena? When somebody tells me they see a bright white tiny ball go from one horizon to the other in a matter of a second or less, and it's zigzagging across the sky, well, I know it's not, TVA.
Exactly.
And it's not a satellite. A fast walker goes. It goes. I mean, I've seen two. And, I mean, they crossed the horizon in front of me with 3 other researchers following it, with binoculars and photographs, and everybody going like, that's unbelievable. Now, a lot of people misconstrue meteors and bolides, with UFOs, but you got to remember, UFOs don't show tails.
Meteors don't make right-hand turns like a lot of the UFOs do.
That's correct. Some will just stop dead and shoot straight up. So, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to see sick in my time. I started researching back in the late 80s when my wife, I, and 3 other people saw what we could not believe above a mountain in Tucson, Arizona, which was about a 300-yard long object, kind of rusty copper in color, just floating above the mountain and then just take off in a shot so fast you couldn't even see it go.
Wow.
And then when I made some inquiries and tried to find out if anybody else saw it, and everybody went like, nah, you didn't see that. I thought, you know what? I know what I saw. And my wife's not, she's, if there's a big skeptic in my life, it's her.
Uh-huh.
And she's kind of seen enough now where she kind of believes what I tell her.
Is that the one that got you interested in this subject then?
Yep. After everybody told me, no, you didn't see what you saw, I thought, you know what? I know what I saw. So I kind of stayed with it for a while. Then I got away from it because I was getting frustrated. I couldn't find the information I wanted. Nobody was talking. I got tired of listening to the same people over and over again talk about Roswell, which was like the premier case. And then I'm thinking, all these cases. And then for some reason, I was on the internet and was reading something, and it just bit me again. And I dug out all my information I had saved from the last time, and I've been at it ever since. So it's been pretty close to 25 years now.
That's cool. You know, we were talking off air about those mountain lights. I forgot where you said they were. Do you want to touch on that? That sounded like an amazing story.
Yeah, right now we're investigating the Brown Mountain Lights down in Morganton, North Carolina. We were down, and like I said to you, I said the whole trip down, I'm driving down there thinking, oh, boy, what a waste of gas, money, rooms, food, you know, the whole 9 yards. And we got up there, and I was really fully not expecting to see anything. I thought, you know, it's just old hearsay, or it's, you know, hallucinations, or maybe it's just the way the mountain sits and the sun sets and all that kind of stuff. And we set up all our gear. We got the cameras out, the infrared, and, you know, recordings and gas detectors, EMF detectors. I mean, we had everything out set up, and took a little while because it was you know, one of those humid nights. It was a hot day. It was very humid at night, and so there was just like this like a mini fog setting in, but it cooled off, and that kind of went away, and the lights came right up, and they showed as pronounced orbs in shape. They were multicolored. They were very large from the standpoint or the standing point where we were, which is about maybe 3-4 miles away from the actual Brown Mountain. They were huge. They would just come out of nowhere. They would expand and contract. They would move up and down, side to side, follow down to the edge of the bottom of the mountain and come back up and disappear. There were multicolors. They were white, yellow, blood red, not like you'd see like a sunset red. This was a brilliant blood red and blue. We watched them through infrared, which they were really pronounced through infrared. To the naked eye, they were pronounced through binoculars, but through the infrared, they had shape. They were not jagged. They were perfectly round. Some went higher than others. They went past the top of the mountain, then receded back down to the mountain. But when they disappeared, it was like they vanished. They just dissipated, like gone. We found no gases in the area that would cause that with the gas detectors. We found no electromagnetic or radiological readings at all. Pictures we got were very good. So it was kind of an amazing thing.
And this is a common occurrence in the area, you're saying, right? They're semi-common. People tend to see it. Yeah,
it's they've been going on since 1722. The original story is that the lights there was an Indian war, Indians against Indians, and the indigenous people started this war with each other, and there were many braves killed on top of the mountain. That's where the battle took place. And weeks after, you know, people were seeing these lights and saying, well, that was the wives and family members looking for their dead warriors, you know, walking around the mountain with torches because they couldn't go up in the daylight because it'd be, you know, somebody start a fight with them, so they would do it at night. And it's been looked at twice by the government. They came up with nothing. We looked at what the mountain is made of, which is a quartz. We looked at seismograph in the area of maybe the earth shifting, you know, or tectonic plates moving a little bit and causing these sparks. But they're not sparks. They don't come up as a spark. They come out of nowhere. You could be looking at a spot, and whether you're looking through infrared or binoculars, and you know, you're looking at a spot, and this thing just comes out of nowhere. It just grows. It just like comes out of the dark and gets to a certain size, and then it just starts moving around. And there'll be another one aside of it. It'll be 3 and 4 or 5 off to the right, and there'll be 3 or 4 over here, and then 1 down here, and then they'll all go away, and it'll be like 1 or 2, and then it'll go back to 1. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to them.
Wow.
So we're going to go down this time, and I think what we're going to do is, and I'm going to expect some help from somebody that I just learned knows a lot about TV stuff, to hook a camera up that we can keep running from start to finish and stay the whole night, and get it recorded and mounted on top of the truck so nobody can trip over it or knock it over or something like that. So it's out of the way, and it'll record to a recorder in the truck, and that we can watch it also on our computer mounted in the truck. So it's a very interesting case. There's one group, I guess, that went down and looked at it a couple years ago, and they said it's plasma, and they can create the same effect in their microwave in the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, I just don't buy that one too much. I'm not a real fan of plasma. Although plasma does exist, I just don't think this is the case because why would it change color?
Well, you said this has got a solid shape, too, when you looked under infrared, right?
Correct. Yeah. When you're looking through infrared, when you're looking naked eye or binoculars, you have like a ball, but it's fuzzy. You know what I mean? It's got an edge.
Right.
You're looking through infrared, you're looking at a perfectly round ball.
Okay, well, plasma wouldn't be that then, because plasma wouldn't have a solid object behind it.
That's correct. So producing it in this microwave might be a fun thing to try, but I don't know. I just don't excite me with that.
Well, that's a very interesting one, actually. I'm definitely going to have to come down there and see that one.
Oh yeah, it's really something to see. Like I said, talk about someone being skeptical, man. I was all the way down. I kept saying to myself, "What a waste of time! What a waste! What a waste of this! What a waste of that!" And then when I saw them, I was yelling at the guys. You know, the camera's rolling. You got this up? Is this running? Are you taking pictures? You know, and I really got excited when I saw them, and they were there for a long time. I mean, we started seeing them about 7:30 at night, 7:45 maybe, and then by about 23, 30 hours, they were pretty much gone. Now, they say, from talking to people down here, which hundreds of people come to look at this, there are 3 lookout points. We were just at one. But the lookout points are packed. I mean, people bring coolers, cameras, binoculars, and they just set up for the evening. But it's really something to see. I mean, it's something where you can't draw any scientific conclusion, but it's factual. You know, it's really, it's astounding to see these lights.
And you got videos of these, you said then?
Yeah, we got videos and we got still pictures, infrared. Yep. So this time when we go down, though, we want to have some kind of television setup where we can turn the camera on and let it run and just record the whole 9 yards from start to finish.
Right.
Where we can time it, date it, and, you know, how often are they coming out? Is there any sequence? Are they coming out in the same areas? Are they starting in the same location, or are they just random? Mm-hmm. Is there any time lapse between them? Like, do they come out every 30 seconds? Or, you know, anything we can get to help us, you know, try to find an answer to this, which is really, it's quite something to see. That
it's amazing. Say, like I was telling you off air, I can probably give you a hand with some of this stuff.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
But it's definitely going to be a trip this summer because you got my interest and, you know, I got the equipment to check it out.
Yeah, and we really want to get that set up on our truck because there's a couple other things that would really work out with when you have a TV setup or a video setup where you can set it on something to watch. You can go about doing other things, and you still know that there's a set of eyes basically on what you're looking for.
Exactly.
Whether it's a Bigfoot sighting or strange lights or something in the sky or, you know, something in a field or even a house where there's supposed to be paranormal activity. One of the things that always makes me a little crazy, and it's my lack of paranormal experience that I relate this. I find it hard. If I was going to do a perfect investigation, I would set everything up with cameras all over the place. There wouldn't be a doorway or a window that wasn't being watched by something.
Exactly. I'm the exact same way.
And I know some groups do that, but they'll do like a room. Well, if I got noise coming up on the roof, I want cameras to the roof. I want cameras to the back, sides of the house, front of the house, inside the house, outside the house. I want cameras everywhere. Now, that's a little expensive. I understand that. But I think if you have camera that you can, you know, or two set up on your vehicle or in the vehicle or outside the vehicle where you can watch areas that you're normally not going to be able to see, you can put your efforts toward, you know, interior or an area in the interior. And another thing is, I think when I see, you know, somebody running the camera in the room and they're looking for something to happen in the room, but they have the lights out. I mean, the lights are on, rather. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be better to have the lights out and use infrared?
Yeah, infrared, I'm a firm believer in real, true infrared, not infrared with IR emitters because you can get false readings. Infrared that sees in the dark.
Correct.
Yeah, I can help you out with that, I'm sure. I mean, I got that 16-camera system that'll catch anything.
Oh, that's neat. You know, those are some of the cases, you know, that I've worked on, that we are working on. We try to keep everything as up to date as we can. We did Presque Isle landing, which we truly believe there was a landing there. I mean, even the Air Force said that, and it's still in Project Blue Book. It's actually got its own number. So is that a factual landing case? I would say yes. Was Carbondale Lantern UFO incident a lantern? I would say no. I'm not saying it was a UFO. But what I am saying is it was not a lantern.
It was a magic lantern. Fell out of the sky, landed the wrong way against the gravity, and then jumped around underwater.
You're correct.
And then they pulled it out with a huge lift and a semi. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, and I just, there are a lot of interesting cases out there, and a lot of them aren't our cases. I mean, they're cases that are presented to us to look at or to, you know, maybe comment on, and I think, you know, if you just keep taking a professional and scientific look at this stuff, you know, eventually you'll get factual, credible, and scientific evidence.
Exactly.
You know, and start to document these occurrences. And then you can let the interested parties, you know, let them look at it and let them better understand and draw their own conclusions. I'm not going to say that's a definite UFO. What I see is a light going across the sky from one side to the other in a matter of a second or less. Well, we don't have anything like that, but I'm not going to stand there and say, well, that's a UFO. I will stand there and say it's a fast walker.
Well, what I was telling you earlier, too, I can't tell you what it is, but I can tell you what it isn't. That's kind of how I do it.
And that's the real way to do it. I mean, unless you've got it in your hand or it's parked in your garage, you've got to have some kind of responsibility in your investigation, and you've got to use factual and unbiased evidence, and you got to use the proper gathering techniques to evaluate and investigate.
Actually, yeah, like I say, as well as I do, when people come out, so-called experts, and they go there, they do something like, it is, and they announce what it is, and they say, that's it, period. And they're full of crap.
Well, yeah, but, there's some people you just can't say that to because they really believe what they saw is what they saw, and you're not going to talk them out of it.
Oh, exactly.
I mean, I've had people say that, what they saw was a UFO flying across the sky up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And I'm showing them the reports on my computer in my truck from NASA where they're reporting a meteor sighting at the exact same time over the exact same area.
And they're wondering why they didn't see the meteor the same time they were watching the UFO then, right?
Yeah, not really. They just say...
Well, Butch, we're actually reaching our 1 hour point here. We have so much more to cover with you yet. We're definitely going to have you on again.
Anytime.
Anything else you want to say in closing? Your websites again or anything, or any information or contact info?
They can, if they want to contact me, when they go onto the webpage, which is www.paUFOsearch.com, all one word, and they go to the Contact Us button on the website and just click that. It'll give them information on how to contact me. It'll show an email. There'll be an email address if they want to email direct, or if they want to put their comments or questions in, and just hit the submit button, and I get it. And we try to answer all our email within a 24-hour period. We are a partner site with the UFO Research Center of Research of North America, UFORNA. They're located down in Georgia. Great group, been around a long time. Great guys, know what they're doing. Kind of have the same mission statement we do. And if there's anybody else, if anything else they're looking for on the site, we put researchers links on there. They can go in there, and if they're looking for something or a certain researcher group, I list as many as I can. There's a lot of good groups out there. There's a lot of good investigators out there. If they can't find an investigator in your area, I had a lady from Quebec that was looking for one just a few weeks ago, and she couldn't find an investigator to make a report. And I made a couple phone calls and got an investigator to call her, so we'll help you out with that. We'll basically help you out with anything we can.
Well, that's cool. You're full service, too. I mean, a lot of places are so set in their ways. They only do certain things. I mean, you'll help anybody with any type of issue, actually.
Yeah. Well, like I said, whether it's a case or just information, we'll help as much as we can.
All right, we'll be right back. You're listening to New Realms. All right, thanks for watching New Realms. We'll have a new show weekly until the brand new series comes out this fall. I'm Aunt Kate.